legislation to provide for a right of recall of underperforming local government councillors on grounds similar to those put before Parliament when MPs debated real recall in 2014. So the premise of the motion is that if a councillor is not doing a good job, you don't have to wait for the 1 year or the 4 years as people want. You deal with it instantly. The idea that you're elected and you suddenly become a dictator for your 4-year term, and unless you literally end up in prison, you're there for life. It's completely wrong, and it needs to be addressed. And a simple recall mechanism where it's 20%, it requires a high bar to get rid of that person, and this is for things like misconduct, failing to represent, crossing the floor, breaking election promises. People are sick of politicians, and can you honestly blame them? They bicker like children, they promise something like we won't build a Thames crossing and then go ahead and do it anyway. No wonder people have had enough of elected politicians. So this is about putting the power back into the hands of voters. Your democratic mandate isn't that one thing that comes up every 4 years and you find it really frustrating and then you want to get over it. And that's the way some people in this chamber act. The election is this horrible thing you have to get out of the way and then I go back to claiming your allowance. That's wrong. So it's about empowering voters. And if councillors aren't delivering, it's time they went out the door, because voters deserve better. So it allows for a recall motion like that they proposed in national government. And unfortunately, as all stuff, the establishment parties teamed up, the Tories and Labour, and even the Lib Dems flipped on it, and they blocked it. Real recall never passed through Parliament. We got a sham version of it where if you do something really bad and then an audit person can class it as a bad enough thing, they'll get rid of you. And it killed it. There's no point having a mechanism that doesn't work and you pat yourself on the back and go, oh, we introduced a little bit of recall, but we never bothered. Have real recall or have nothing, because there's nothing worse than turning around to the voters and going, no, don't worry, we introduced it and it's a voluntary resignation scheme. We need proper recall. If you're not doing your job as a councillor, voters should be able to boot you out the door. There's proper safeguards there, but let's make sure our councillors are delivering for people and not just 4-year dictators.
Is that motion seconded? Councillor Aker, do you wish to speak now or reserve your right?
Reserve my right.
Thank you. I've received an amendment to the motion from Councillor Hebb, and this is provided for you on the desks. Councillor Hebb, do you have a second of that motion? Councillor Hebb, you have 3 minutes to speak to your amendment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you to Councillor Duffin. I think you'll find that the amendment is very closely spirited to Jack's proposal, with just a minor... Do you want to wait? No? Well, you're going to. Right, so recall is an important matter to consider. We announced it at Council last year that it was administration policy, but we would look to make sure that the councillors that don't play by the rules of the game are held to the furthest form of accountability. Something that Jack's motion is reaching out for. The reason for the amendment is simple. One, because we wanted to acknowledge and not overlook the work that we're already doing as a council to install a standard which other councils might follow in the future, and I'll talk about that shortly in a moment. But real recall. I don't know if Councillor Duffin's got his wires slightly crossed. Real recall was not 20%. His motion asked for real recall. The detail asks for something different than real recall. So we'll go into that shortly. The reason real recall was rejected, to be frankly, is it was so overzealous with its criteria. 5% of an electorate. That isn't many people in one ward. It would be by-election after by-election, 12, 13 grand each time. It's irresponsible. So just a quick bit of context. There is no mechanism to recall any of us that don't play by the rules of the game. Since the Localism Act 2011, there is no power of suspension of elected councillors who breach that, breach of code of conduct for members. There are 8 grounds which at top level is triggered when there's only serious misconduct or non-attendance at council meeting that prevails. It was the Conservative-led coalition that introduced the recall of MPs Act 2015 following the 2009 expenses scandal. The triggers are a custodial prison sentence, suspension from the House for providing false or misleading expense claims. As Jack says, I personally don't think that goes far enough either. Then that follows a procedure where the ERO gets involved and the by-election is resolved. But as we say, It was Conservative MP Zach Goldsmith which installed or proposed real recall. The member of Richmond Park and North Kingston's argument was that that law would probably occupy a shelf and watch it get dusty. So the spirit of what Jack said, I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree. His alternative was real recall, where the recall of MP's bill was so far that way, the real recall was so far the other way. It was just that abuse of democracy, as we said. Recall's rare. So as I understand it, the only place that it does exist is Canada and the USA. It's rare. It doesn't happen in Europe very much. But one council, Conservative-led Royal Borough of Kingston, has introduced a scheme where all members, to be fair, have signed up to a scheme, balanced up all the standards. There isn't a statutory basis, and as I announced at the last meeting, the legal team are going through that forensically to understand whether that's something we could apply and set ourselves as the best example. We need to look at also, as well as going to government, I'm happy to send a letter to government. I don't think it's the golden goal that was scored in the now. I think the urgency is too great, and while I'm happy to support a motion right into government to legislate to enable councillors to be held to account, I think we can be doing something now. Not wait for government to deliberate for 2, 3, 4 years. I think we've got the opportunity to do it now. So, I'm really glad Councillor Duffin pushes forward the ideas of a Conservative Member of Parliament, a Conservative Royal Borough, and now a new Conservative Thurrock. I'm more than happy for that letter to be sent. I don't think it's the golden goal that will score. I would just say that the legal officers will continue on the course set. Notwithstanding what happens with the motions tonight, we will look to instigate our own recall system, which will then go for overview and scrutiny and all that jazz in the future. But the spirit of the motion I agree with. I just think we need a bit of clarity around real recall and recall. But I do empathise with your motion. Hence, that my recommendation is opposed to that.
Thank you. Councillors, just before we move on, in that time, I don't know if you'd like to move standing orders to...
No.
So when it comes to half an hour, we go straight to the vote. If everyone who's voting. Okay. That's right. So speak up. Councillor Leslie.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will second the motion, but will reserve my rights to speak to the letter.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Councillor Kent.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We will be supporting the amendment. I think the principle behind recall is right. I just want to say something, though, about the kind of air of cynicism, scepticism that sometimes kind of pervades public life. I have to say, in the 20-odd years that I've been a member here, the vast majority of elected members from all parties or no party have stood for election because they genuinely want to do the best they can to improve the area that they live in. And over that 20-odd years, I can remember on the fingers of one hand those members who, for whatever reason, fell by the wayside, didn't pull their weight, didn't do the job that their residents would have expected. So I do think that a recall, were it to be introduced, would be used extraordinarily rarely. But I think it would be something for residents to have kind of in the back pocket to use should it prove necessary. I am really sceptical, dubious as to whether a local authority, any local authority, can introduce a right of recall on their own. I think it would be something that takes primary legislation. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't look at it, that we shouldn't explore it. And it also doesn't mean that we shouldn't be lobbying government to introduce a scheme on a national basis. I have to say that if members aren't attending, there is the 6-month rule. We do have the ability to waive the 6-month rule when there are genuine concerns over health, things like that. I have no problem at all with trying to tighten up the regime. What I do wonder, though, is that in a kind of air of openness and transparency, whether we are missing the trick in just having a look at what it is that elected members are doing for the 4 years that they're there. A right of recall wouldn't be triggered by a councillor that turns up for council every month but never raises a piece of casework. Perhaps we could look at publishing the casework loads of individual councillors. there are councillors that hold regular advice surgeries, councillors that never hold advice surgery. Perhaps that's something we should look at. I think we may need to just open up, be a bit more transparent, and give residents the tools to hold us to account that they don't currently have.
Councillor Aker.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I fully support Councillor Duffy's motion because I think that were it to pass, and were we to have proper real recall, I don't think it would ever get used. I think, I agree with the point Councillor Kidd made. I think that people do get involved in politics for the right reasons. And that's something I think that the passage of this would actually show, is that we are able and happy to hold ourselves to account 24/7 to the residents. But similarly, I think that we've got to trust the people on this. I'm a big supporter of referendums. I'm a big supporter of direct democracy. I've put motions here before the council to call for local referendums on the Grays High Roads, for instance. I think the people would take their political power, given back to them, with a great deal of responsibility. And what have we got to be afraid of by giving the people that power? Absolutely nothing. So I don't think it's a case of being sceptical about people's reasons for engaging in the political process. I don't think it's saying that everyone's terrible in this chamber, because I don't think there is anyone here that didn't get into this for the right reasons. We all do a very good job. We've got a lot to be proud of in Thurrock. We don't want it to be concreted over. We saw at the last election quite a sizable increase in turnouts, which means we were engaging, we were knocking on doors. We have, in my office, and I dare say at the Labour office and your surgeries, more people coming in. Not just offering to complain, but to seek advice and to say now and again what a good job we're doing. But I think this would be a sign of a greater contract with the people and the residents we have, that yes, if there is that rare case where we step out of line for whatever reason, we give you the right to remove us. And there can be nothing wrong with that.
Councillor Little.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree with everything that Councillor Kidd has said. There are, well, he can name a few on one hand. I'll probably sort of do very similar, but with slightly less digits. There are people, pretty much I would say everyone in here are in here for the right reasons. Everyone does the job which they do. We all do it in a slightly different way. Some are whole surgeries, some go direct to people's homes. I personally think having someone describe a problem between their neighbours, or the fact that a tree needs cutting down doesn't need cutting down, that's a cold, windy church hall somewhere, when actually I would get a better view of it at their address. But that's not to say that surgeries are wrong either. There should be, as John says, some kind of clarity on what we do and how often we do it. But that should be matched, obviously, on how much casework we get as councillors. I think this was done in Brentwood by an independent councillor who was listing certain criteria that he thought was the right thing to make councillors good or better or worse, and did his own league tables. I'm sure it upset a few of his colleagues or former colleagues, but you know, it was possibly the way of doing the right thing. I can't actually agree with the real recall, solely because it is a specific set of mandate that was put forward to government to discuss a specific project that sits on its own with a name. I am in favour of recall. I think, as everyone has said tonight, it would be very rare that it would be used, but it does need to be properly thought through, and it would be great if Thurrock could come up with a decent local scheme. And whilst John's quite right, it would take primary legislation to be able to remove councillors. There are other things that we may be able to do within our constitution, and that does need to be explored. And perhaps government look towards us to say, actually, this is a really good scheme. Well, this is nearly a really good scheme, and this needs to be changed, and that needs to be changed. I certainly never thought I would say to myself, the scrapping of the standards was a bad thing. £23 million a year of taxpayers' money used for who knows what. But there have been times when I've looked back and thought, do you know what, if we'd had the standards board, this would have happened, or that would have happened, or we could have instigated that kind of action. To that very rare occasion when a member has not behaved in the best interest of the public, or indeed sometimes themselves. I will be obviously supporting the amendment. I hope that all members will support that, and I look forward to it coming in front of the Constitutional Working Group and then working its way through the channels to be able to come live. I would also like to see residents also have a bit of an input into this as well. Of course, we are their representatives. You know, I don't have one boss. I have a couple of thousand bosses. We all have a couple of thousand bosses, some more than others. Some get the opportunity to say that they want that particular party in charge every year, some get it every 2 years. And obviously we discussed that earlier. And hopefully a combination of this and perhaps if residents want to go for yearly elections, we might see a lot more of us being held to account. So hopefully, and I know it hasn't happened in Thurrock, as Councillor Rice has said, that we won't be sitting here sleeping for 3 years, 6 months until we have to start that election cycle again. So I will be supporting Councillor Hebb's amendment and hope that the rest of the chamber will do so also.
Councillor Hebb, would you like to see it as move the amendment? Do you wish to have the right to reply?
I do, and I'm going to get a bit fluffy because, you know, let's be honest with you, actually there's three parties here which all agree in more accountability. Where do we think about what mechanism, what process? Actually, the three parties, you know, and I want to take a view as well, I'm sure, believe in recall. Not necessarily, you know, a stamp of recall, but believe in a higher form of accountability. We know there's a long journey to do to get to what that defined, you know, that primary legislation outcome will be. That's a heck of a journey. But yeah, let's make a start. Let's be the first one that does it, and let's put Thurrock on the map for open democracy. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Duffy, do you wish to sum up?
It's really important that we don't believe the mistruths that were told by Councillor Head. It was 20% in the initial motion that went to Parliament, not 5%. The recall he's talking about, which doesn't allow any resident to recall a politician, it allows 0. The MPs amongst themselves have to decide if someone's broken the rules, and then it gives the option for residents to recall them. That isn't recall. That is an absolute sham. And to claim that's going to be recall and make people accountable isn't true. These overzealous people he spoke about is, interestingly, my MP and his MP is apparently an overzealous person, so I'll be interested next time you speak to Stephen Metcalfe, who voted in favour of the real recall bill, and I applaud him for that. And it's important that we look at the Kingston model, because I spoke to Democratic Services and the team when I looked at this. It allows no recall. For that to happen, you sign up to a voluntary agreement that if you break the rules, you then resign. There is no element to allow a motion, nothing binding about it, and it is just a pure sham. And I think it's really disingenuous to the voters. If anyone in this building votes in favour of the amendment, pats themselves on the back and goes, we've got recall, it just doesn't mean anything. It's absolute nothing. Unless the voters can force a vote to remove someone, that is not recall. So if this amendment passes, I'll vote against the bill, because I think it's an absolute disgrace to the voters you claim to represent that you would pass a recall motion that doesn't allow them to recall anyone. So please, I beg you, reject this amendment, because it does not do anything to solve the issue. Vote in favour of the motion, and I'd like to request a requisition vote.
Let's call it out.
It's on the motion, and not on the amendment. Don't need a one on that, just on the motion. I'd like a requisition vote.
Right, we're now going to go to the vote on the amendment. So, all those in favour of the amendment, please raise your hands. Thank you. All those against the amendment, please raise your hands. Thank you. Are there any abstentions? Okay. The amendment is carried.
I'm happy to remove the requisition next, there's no point.
Thank you. favour, please raise your hands.
Oh, that's